Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone who are teaching this truth with sincerity, and a shout out to Yakim and Yaakwath. Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Brakat Tam. So, there's actual discussions about this, as everybody knows that the coronavirus was in fact created by the United Snakes, the whore, Babylon the Great. And so you can't help but find articles like this on Press TV. Is coronavirus a U.S. biowarfare weapon, as France Boyle believes? Yeah, so they're actually talking about this. On January 30, the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus outbreak to be a public health emergency of international concern. On Sunday, U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Anthony Fauci said the coronavirus almost certainly is going to be a pandemic. The WHO defines a pandemic as a worldwide spread of new disease. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, calls it a disease that spreads across several countries and continents, usually affecting a large number of people. Britain's Health and Safety Executive says a viral outbreak can be characterized as a pandemic if it's markedly different from recently circulated strains, notably if humans have little or no immunity to it. So here comes Esau's solution to get everybody vaccine, which you know the vaccines is what causes viruses to begin with. The New York Times quoted former CDC Director Thomas Frieden saying it's increasingly unlikely that the coronavirus can be contained, adding, "It is therefore likely that it will spread as flu and other organisms, but we still don't know how far, wide, or deadly it will be." The term pandemic applies to a disease that affects large numbers of people worldwide, clearly not applicable to the coronavirus outbreak based on evidence so far. See below. In response to a question asked me by a friend on the seriousness of the coronavirus outbreak to people in the United States, I explained that the chase of being in an auto accident or harmed by one at home is far greater. I also stressed that establishment media, especially the U.S. cable channels, are the most unreliable sources of information. Yeah, because that's disinformation. On the coronavirus outbreak, featuring fear-mongering reports, which of course you and I both know that that's exactly what they want to do. Spread fear so everybody get vaccinated so they can put the RFID in it. Here we are. This is the big one. Law professor Francis Boyle drafted the U.S. Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989, signed into law by George H.W. Bush, revoked by Bush Cheney on the pretext of rebuilding America's defenses at a time when the nation's only enemies are invented. No real one exists. Boyle believes the potentially deadly coronavirus is a biowarfare weapon genetically modified for his purpose. So there you go. China's Wuhan's BSL-4 lab is a WHO-designed research lab. Boyle explaining that the organization is fully aware of what's happening and how. Boyle's assessments contradicts claims about the virus originating from a Wuhan seafood market or being connected to coronavirus found in bats. So you see, of course they're lying to you. So we just pretty much know, though, that this thing was well manufactured.
I've been dealing with this issue.
It was definitely a serious issue in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s. As far as I understand, Israel has been dealing with it. Some argue that there is a serious improvement. I don't know whether to
some
believe
more
the statistics
genocide
or not.
planned by Israeli state Amalek.
Israel is a center for all those kind of activities because it is dismissal with the notion of otherness. It is not just the Palestinians, it is also as a slave, so-called illegal immigrants, prostitution coming from the Eastern Bloc, ex-USSR, and so on and so on.
So this issue of trafficking began as a part of the labor industry, right? Why hasn't it been dealt with?
In the Jewish universe, there is a clear distinction between the Jew, the chosen, and the Goy, who is the unchosen. In Israel, this dichotomy, this binary dichotomy is even settled, integrated into the law. And the meaning of it is that foreign labor are not second-class citizens. They are 12 or 14 or 15th class citizen. Before them, we have this this multi-layered racism within the Israeli society. At the top, we see the white, the Ashkenazi, the Europeans, and then we see the Sephardi Jews, and then the Arab Jews, the Moroccan Jews, and then the Yemenite Jews, and so on and so on. Down below, we see the Ethiopian Jews who are subject to some horrendous racism within the Jewish society. And then at the bottom, we see the Palestinians and the foreign workers. It is a very racist society, and this is an issue that we are not allowed to deal with, but we better call a spade a spade.
Lastly, is it hard for observers to identify this trend in Israel?
It is hard to identify the demography of this trade in Israel. I think that it is a general symptom to the point that almost every elder Israeli Jew has Philippine youngsters who take
And by the way, anytime you want to actually catch Press TV Live, you can hit the live button on the Press TV page itself, because you will not find the videos anymore on YouTube itself, even if you're subscribed to it. Now, so the only thing you can hit is live, and so that was a discussion, of course, about Amalek and, their trafficking that goes on in the Israeli state, because you notice, though, that they have the name Israeli. They're everything but Jew, because they're not the Jews, and we've gone into this several times, that Amalek is the worst of them and the most hated out of all. Syria deplores Iran's insistence on continuing to lie, mislead, and evade regarding his acts in Syria. Yeah, because we know that Gomer and all his bands, have their ambitions about Syria, and now are trying to make their ambitions for the Ottoman Empire through Libya. Syrian Arab Republic deplored the insistence of President of the Turkish regime on continuing to lie and mislead regarding his acts in Syria, affirming that his statements on Adana agreement re-emphasizes his disrespect of any obligation on agreement, whether in framework of Astana or associate understandings. The Syrian Arab Republic deplores the insistence of the Turkish regime, President Erdogan, on continuing the lying and misleading regarding his acts in Syria, particularly his claim with regard to the entrance of his forces to northern Syria according to Adana agreement on combating terrorism, which you and I both know that they invaded Syria. They were not welcomed by the Syrian army. An official source at the Foreign and Expertise Ministry on Wednesday told Syrian Arab News Agency. The source added that in regard, Syria affirms that Adana agreement imposes coordination with the Syrian government as it is considered an agreement between two states, and thereby Erdogan can't act unilaterally according to the obligations of this agreement. The source went on that Adana agreement for guaranteeing the safety of the borders between the two countries actually aims to combat terrorism, but what Erdogan is doing to protect his tools of terrorist groups to which he has provided all types of support and which have been collapsing while the Syrian Arab army has been advancing and the Erdogan's project in Syria has been also collapsing with them. That's why he's making his ambitions towards Libya, all of them. The source concluded by saying that the statements made by President of the Turkish regime affirm again the approach of lying, misleading, and evasion, which governs his policies and his disrespect of any commitment or agreement, whether in framework of the stunning or social understandings of the obligations of Adana agreement, indicating that his denial makes the Turkish regime and its president lose the minimum credibility, and the dismal failure will be the inevitable fate of the hostile policies. It seems to repeat the same words over and over again. I've been noticing that I've repeated the same words over and over again. But nonetheless, though, you get that they're doing there, and they use the media to make it look like Erdogan's this nice guy, but he really is just another terrorist set up by the United States. More on Amalek here. Ex-Israeli army chief admits to arming Syrian rebels, which you know are the current terrorist groups such as ISIS and Takfiri, Daesh. Former Israeli Army General Gadi Ashkenaz has gone on record affirming long-held allegations that Israel has directly provided weapons to Syrian opposition fighters against the government of President Bashar al-Assad. According to Haaretz, the revelations made last month depart from Israel's previous media policy on the subject, whereby it has insisted that Tel Aviv has only provided humanitarian aid to civilians via field hospitals in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights and healthcare facilities in northern Israel. Ashkenaz has become the most senior Israeli official to admit Israel's role in the Syrian conflict and its support for armed opposition groups, aka terrorists, including terrorists affiliated with Al-Qaeda. In 2017, the Wall Street Journal reported that Israel has been supporting the rebels for years and that the Israeli army is in regular communication with rebel groups, including sending undisclosed payments to help pay the salaries of fighters with an established Israeli military unit that oversees such support. Israel stood by our side in a heroic way, said Mustim Al-Goni, spokesman for the rebel group Furna al-Julan. We wouldn't have survived without Israel's assistance. So, there you go. You and I both know, though, that they're not the real Jews. They are, in fact, the terrorists. And Esau, being the head of it, Amalek, is drawing everybody into this war. Now, while they really want to minimize what's going on with the coronavirus, by saying, well, it's not really a pandemic yet, they're trying to downplay it. Here's what's going on in the retail apocalypse. Macy's to cut 2,000 jobs and shutter 125 stores amid significant structural change. Macy's announced Tuesday that it had adopted a 3-year plan designated to stabilize profits and continue company growth. The new plan calls for a radical $1.5 billion cost-cutting program that will axe upwards of 2,000 jobs and shutter 125 stores across the United States. The retailer, which operates 680 stores under the Macy's and Bloomingdale's brands, says the store closure represents an 18% reduction in its brick and mortar footprint. Layoffs are about 2,000 corporate jobs will account for the 9% of its workforce. There's also a plan to close several offices. So there you go. Well, we'll find out if writing is affected by this. Macy's said the cost savings would generate about $600 million in 2020 and $1.5 billion annually by 2022. We are taking the organization through significant structural change to lower costs, bring closer teams together, and reduce duplicate work. This will be a tough week for our team as we say goodbye to great colleagues and good friends. The changes we are making are deep and impact every area of the business, but they are necessary. I know we will come out of this transition stronger, more agile, and better fit to compete in today's retail environment, Jeff Chennett said in a statement. You know, this is just one of those things, man. Part of the downsizing event. The retailer will be testing smaller storefronts called Market by Macy's and concentrated more e-commerce. Over 9,000 retail department stores closed their doors last year with 2020 underway. Macy's latest cost-saving ploy suggests the retail apocalypse will drag on. So, there you go, man. You know, and you know what's next. They have a problem. They got the solution. And here's something that you will never hear in the so-called 501c3 church. Your fat-ass pastor that is eating pork and all kinds of abominable foods will never get into this, but we, the real prophets on the streets teaching, will tell you. Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are a very froward generation, children whom is no faith. You know, and there are many that are faithless. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not of Yahweh. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. You know, and that's just it, though, is, you know, we're not even really a nation. We're coming back as a nation. The house of David is being brought up, but you can see, though, that this has happened to us. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with their increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. What's that talking about? It's talking about when this place, the new Egypt, is destroyed. Babylon the Great. So your pastors will not go into this. I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spin my arrows upon them. What's that talking about? Nuclear missiles. And you ain't going to hear about that in the 501c3 church, but you see, we, the prophets of doom, will definitely tell you that. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them with the poison of serpents of the dust. Is there not plagues going on? Think about it. Just before those arrows start hitting. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young men and the virgin, the sucking also with the men of gray hairs. I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Where it is not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord hath not done this. And you see, that's just it. You know, our people want to go with a strange God that loves everybody and everything. Doesn't want to believe that Yahweh Hashem Yahushai has been provoked to anger. He doesn't even want to, they don't even want to believe that Caesar Borgia is an idol. No, they would rather continue worshiping Caesar Borgia, go into that 501c3 church, you know, getting their version of Kentucky Fried, you know. And yet we, the prophets, have gone out. And now it's gotten so much attention, you know, that Donald Trump has said we got to reject these prophets of doom. But, you know, again, the arrows are speaking about the missiles. These bullets, they will not dodge. These arrows will fly and they will make their targets, creating a lake of fire for all those that took the mark of the beast. And the pressure to take the mark of the beast, the hour of temptation is coming. As you could tell, though, I mean, I get it every day that, well, there's a new camp channel because the old one was taken down. It's happening all the time at a more rapid rate. So, yeah, you have the pandemic of the coronavirus, but you also got a pandemic of channels being shut down. So the word has gone out, which means only the judgments can come. And this being the year of prophecy, well, we're seeing it. We're seeing some plagues already come. It's only February. But look at everything that's transpired here. So I hope all this has been edifying. Like everything else, though, you know, we're going to continue to remain diligent. And those that are going to be lukewarm are going to be spewed out. For that, I want to say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Kadash, Wa Abba Babal. This prophecy of doom will come to pass very shortly. Shalom.